Imagine you have just turned 18 and have been wanting to join the military and fight for your country for the longest time. How would you feel if you were suddenly unable to enlist, solely because you also happen to be transgender? This has become a reality for many people as of last year. This may even affect some people you personally may know, as it does for me. For those of you who do not follow the news very closely or just simply are not aware, let me give you a brief overview of what happened. Now, in 2017, House Republicans were planning on passing a spending bill essentially stacked with Trump's campaign promises, including money to build Mexico's border wall. But a House Republican fight over transgender troops was threatening to stop the bill. In the article, Inside Trump's Snap Decisions to Ban Transgender Troops, it is stated that some House members feared that they might not have the votes to pass the legislation because some wanted a ban on Pentagon-funded sex reassignment operations in turn, which was something GOP leaders would not give them. So it was a surprise to many when President Trump tweeted that, quote, "The United States government will not accept or allow transgender individuals to serve in any capacity in the U.S. military," unquote. The president claimed that transgender people are a burden on the military and simply cost too much. The discussion on whether transgender individuals should be allowed to enlist in the military has become a hot topic many were talking about. However, there are many reasons Trump should reconsider his transgender ban. Some reasons people argue that allowing transgender people to enlist and serve in the military is a cost America cannot afford, seeing how the budget is already stretched thin as it is. Trump states often that the reason transgender people should not serve in any capacity is because of an $8.4 million in additional expenditures, while the national security state costs American taxpayers over $1 trillion a year. Another argument that is brought up frequently is that transgenders will not be military ready due to hormone treatments and sex reassignment surgeries they would have to undergo. Often, the military, much like life, is never fair. The military is about success and preparedness along with national security and uniformity. The idea that the military can be part of a grand egalitarian utopia is simply not probable. It is a dangerous proposition that does little to keep Americans safe. A fully transgender individual has, by definition, undergone a major surgery. Another issue that is often discussed as well is that many feel they will not have a sound mind and body. One of the major requirements for successful service is mental resilience. This was a problem encountered by Bradley Manning as he struggled with his gender identity. In short, Manning had downloaded important U.S. files and then gave these files to WikiLeaks to publish, endangering the lives of his fellow military. The additional assignment to combat zones in the middle of that identity crisis only made the entire issue, as well as giving Manning the support he required during such a crisis while in a war zone, immensely complicated. Lastly, yet another argument from this side of the topic is that troops will not be able to cope with policy changes, and dealing with these changes may halt their unity, leading to divisions between groups, which is something our troops cannot afford to have in the middle of a war and such. The military, however, recognizes the challenges faced by transgender individuals and acknowledges that these challenges are a risk. Despite all these valid points the other side does make, people often fail to acknowledge the other side. It is an American's unalienable right to serve their country. According to a government-supported study by the Rand Corporation, it is estimated that only 10 to 130 members each year would be unable to be deployed because of gender transition-related treatments. This is a flimsy number considering the 50,000 active component soldiers who are already currently non-deployable. The same study by the Rand Corporation concluded that healthcare costs related to transition surgeries and testosterone treatment would estimate between 2.4 million and 8.4 million, which is only an approximate of 0.13% increase, meaning that money could not be a significant factor in the decision to ban all transgender people from the military. There is no significant effect on combat readiness or healthcare costs in having transgender people serve in the military. The trans restrictions are embedded in medical regulations whose purpose is perfectly sensible to minimize the chances that anyone who joins the military will endanger the health of the force, lose excessive duty time, or become undeployable, is stated by Jonah Bromwich from the New York Times. But when the commission considered the rationality for including transgender identity and trans-related medical procedures in the list of disqualifiers to service, two important discoveries were made: that the restrictions are hugely out of date and that there is no documented history of why they ever existed in the first place. Another important point in many issues people declare exclusive to transgender individuals also includes non-transgenders in the military as well. 33% of the United States Army is on prescription medication, around a quarter of those being dangerous psychotropic drugs. Others, including hormone replacement therapy patients, being treated for non-transition issues. The denial of hormone replacement therapy has nothing to do with the stratification of risk, because other service members are already allowed access to medications which are much more dangerous. Recalling the case of Staff Sergeant Robert Bales, who killed 16 Afghan civilians in the middle of an Ambien-induced blackout, while Private First Class Manning knowingly and willingly communicated secret military intelligence and diplomatic cable files to Julian Assange, the editor of the WikiLeaks project, and by doing so betrayed the oath they took to defend the Constitution of the United States, undermining operations in Afghanistan and Iraq, exposing service members and local intelligence contacts to considerable risk of retaliation, and hampering the nation's ability to conduct effective diplomacy. Manning did not leak those documents for money. He did not leak them to uncover war crimes, and he did not leak them because of some mental defect. Manning had felt slighted by the United States military and wanted to watch the world burn. It is very unfortunate that Manning has become the poster child for transgender service members. Try not to compare other transgenders to a traitor. Hundreds of American service members over hundreds of years have given information to the enemy. One of them happened to be transgender. This is also not the only time in history when people have been discriminated against in the military aspect either. Excuse me. Since 1776 up to the Korean War, official Army policy was that minorities were incapable of serving with whites, that the result would be pure chaos and disorder, that morale would drop. It was not until 1948, when President Truman signed Executive Order 9981, abolishing segregation in the military, that African Americans were finally held as equal to whites in the military. It took nearly 200 years for people to stop accepting segregation with blind faith. It took even longer for the bans on gay service members to come down. In every case, lawmakers and generals alike screamed from the top of their lungs about the devastating consequences of breaking down these barriers, and in every case, they were wrong. Overall, President Trump is wrong to ban transgender individuals from serving in the military, seeing as how the pros of allowing transgenders to serve far outweighs the cons. If any individual is willing to risk life for their country, they should be allowed to serve, no matter what gender they identify as. Thank you.